In a world of increasing mental health challenges, psychology and faith can both provide tools for healing and wellness. This is the idea behind Journey on My Mind. Each episode, our panel of pastors and therapists sit down together to share their experiences and insights on the modern world's mental health issues: depression, loneliness, aging, addiction, and so much more. Join us now as we explore what it means to thrive at the complex intersection of spirit and psychology.
Welcome to another Journey on My Mind, and we are down a couple of soldiers today.
Yeah.
Lauren couldn't make it, and Sam is somehow dealing with a furnace issue down at his place.
So he says.
That's what he said. That's the latest. That's what we're calling it now. So we invited Rob Gonzalez to join us. Thank you, Rob.
This was planned.
Yes.
I definitely wasn't just sitting in the other room.
Harangue.
Plan to be here.
Yeah. Yes. Put this on your calendar now.
Right now.
And Dave and I, your regular run-of-the-mill two old white guys who show up every other week on your screen.
That can be a podcast.
In your ear. Yes, two old white guys.
It's called every podcast.
That is every podcast.
Yeah. We normally are three old white guys, but now we're two old white guys and Rob.
And I found out, and I knew this about Dave, but he loves movies, and he goes to movies periodically. And he gave us a review today on Gladiator 2.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know you were going that way.
And both Rob and I went, really?
We have neither of us
seen it, and now I'm probably not going to.
Well, Judge,
he is not
you might love
entertained.
it. You might love it.
I doubt it.
I mean, you were going to go see Red Dawn, so I think you're
Red One.
Red One.
Please don't see that.
Your movie standard may be.
It depends upon
different
if I
than
just
mine.
need a stupid moment of.
Are you a movie guy?
Then go see Gladiator.
I used to be. Somehow something broke in me during COVID actually.
Yeah.
I just
couldn't do it.
Yeah.
It's getting better. The experience is getting better.
Yeah, but it's so expensive. That's the part that's
not getting better.
It's not?
No.
I love going to a movie, sitting there eating popcorn and having a drink, and I love a good movie. I do. Just the product hasn't been as. I love Dune 2. Dune 2 was great. It
was a good movie.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I will say that you're making it sound like I dogged Gladiator, but I will tell you. I
was going to let you talk. I was going to let you talk.
I went with a group of 8 guys, and the reviews. Our custom is to go and then stand around and review the movie. B+.
And to be fair, you did not dress up because that's all I can picture.
Oh yeah, I dressed up. Yeah. Toga.
Crown.
8 guys at Gladiator. I feel like.
Are you not entertained?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, we the range was B+ to one guy said possibly the worst movie I've ever seen in my life.
Does he watch a lot of movies?
Oh, he's in the entertainment industry and he knows what he's talking about.
Dang.
And he was very harsh.
Okay.
Wow. And we did not agree with that. But I will say I was in the B- range, which I'd say B to B-. B- for me is the lowest point where I would say a movie is
acceptable,
fairly good, but not a really good or great movie.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I would say.
Okay.
But there were other people that were like, it was solid. I liked it. So,
yeah. But go ahead. You were going to ask.
I was just going to ask, have you guys ever done the 4D movie experience?
Oh yeah. I love that.
Really?
Yeah.
I've not done it.
The one at the Hollywood cinema thing.
Yeah.
Shakes your. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you a real quick story about that.
Just imagine being Gladiator.
Blood splattered on you when you leave.
Well, they have ponchos. They rain. There's water.
Oh yeah.
Which sounds awful for a movie.
It does. Yeah. Go ahead.
This is kind of a visual, so I apologize if you're just listening to this, but I went to see Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
And one of my daughters and her husband went with us. Her husband, musician, pretty like wide open in terms of like being expressive.
Okay.
All right. But they didn't know it was in this 4D thing.
Oh.
And so he's sitting by me and the seat starts rumbling and he turns to me and puts his face in my face and goes, "This is crazy. This is crazy. This is crazy." And then 2 minutes would pass and then the rumble and the wind and then look at me. "This is crazy." That was the whole movie, was him I'm like, I know, I get it. It's crazy. It's
Just
it
wind.
is wow, crazy.
Yes. When we were, this was a long time ago, we took our kids to Disney and they
had Disney back then?
yeah, this was like 2002,
Okay.
2001, somewhere in there. But when we went, there was this alien thing experience.
Yeah.
And you sit in this place.
That's scary.
Well, I sit down next to Zach. Zach wanted to go, Alyssa, and then a teenage girl sat next to me, and with her friends, and they're like, she leans over and she goes, "Is this like realistic?" I said, "I don't know. I've never been here before." And she goes, "No, really, is it like really scary?" And I'm like, "It's alien. I'm imagining this, and my 10-year-old kid's sitting here next to me. 11-year-old kid is sitting here. He'll be fine. You'll be fine." Well, it opens up, and the alien escapes, and so the alien's loose in the room, and you're in this room, and this girl is losing her mind. My arm when I left was bruised because she was hiding in my arm, and I was like, "It's okay. They're not going to kill you. Disney is definitely going to let you out of here alive." I said that like 6 times to this. Was it kind of like that?
Oh, yeah. Well, remind me, this is too long a story to tell today, but let's bring up another movie-going experience, because when I was in college, I had that experience times 5.
Oh.
And it was one of the craziest things I've ever experienced in my life.
Oh,
So
good setup.
That's a good teaser.
Okay.
For it.
But,
All right.
but on the other end of the spectrum, I just want you to know Dave loved Wicked.
I did.
Yeah.
I
And
also
so did Rob.
loved-
And I have
and
not
so
seen
did
it.
Rob's
I've
kids.
only seen it in the theater. I've not.
It's so good.
Wait, no, I've only seen it on
In the
stage.
stage.
On the stage.
Yeah.
So, and it was wonderful. And I don't like
Incredible.
musicals, and it was wonderful.
Yeah, everything about it was good. It was
Yeah.
true to the musical.
Yeah.
The casting was great. The direction was great.
Yeah.
The visuals were great.
Yeah.
The storytelling was terrific. It was really good.
all that.
And National Board of Review, which is not, like Golden Globes is a little bit like hinky as far as like, is this legit? Because there's like 70 people voting for,
Yeah.
The National Board of Review is like the first legit harbinger of what's to come. They gave it Best Picture.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
Well, there you go.
yeah,
there you have it.
They used to list just 10
Yeah.
films that are like best, and I think now they've recently, I think it's recent, started identifying like the top, and it's Wicked, and the director also won. So
Okay. That's cool.
there you go.
Okay.
All right.
Well, there's that.
Now we know.
Yep. All right. Well, today we're going to move into a conversation around burnout.
Yes.
Prompted by, no. I mean, Dave came in.
Prompted by Dave.
Just having a rough day.
It's
Been a rough.
It feels like a bad year. But with that, I'll let you introduce our topic for the day.
Yeah.
And we will go from there.
And I particularly want to make sure we bring this into a church context and also ministry, like people in ministry.
Oh, it
context.
happens all the time.
For sure.
Ministry. All the time.
So as I often want to do, I want to make sure we're defining our terms well. So we're talking about the thing we think we're talking about.
That's helpful.
Right.
Yes.
So there is stress, there's anxiety, there's burnout. They're different things, but they overlap.
Okay.
All right. So stress is psychological weight that you're under. It could come from internal or external sources.
Okay.
And it can be low or medium or high.
Okay.
That's stress. Anxiety is an emotion that has to do with worry or dread about the future.
Okay.
And sometimes stress can provoke anxiety, and sometimes anxiety can provoke stress. But stress can also provoke other emotions. You can get really irritable and angry if you're stressed out. You can get really depressed if you're stressed out.
Sure.
So sometimes people say stress and anxiety are synonymous. They talk about them like they're the same thing. Those are different things.
Okay.
They're related but different.
Okay.
Burnout is when you reach a point of stress being chronic and excessive to the point where you have fatigued or kind of blown a gasket, and it could be physical, emotional, mental, something
Or
like
all
that,
of the
or
above.
all of the above.
Okay.
So it is an overload. It's a chronic overload of stress that leads to exhaustion in those areas.
Okay.
That's what we're talking about.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Burn out.
How about that?
Okay. And it's a clinical term?
That's a great question. It is it's a pseudoclinical term, meaning it's not a diagnosis. You will not get a diagnosis of burnout.
Okay.
If you're going to like get a formal diagnosis. It's not like depression or bipolar or something like that.
Okay.
But it is an understood syndrome or thing. In other words, it is something that's acknowledged. World Health Organization puts it as a workplace phenomenon. I think that's what they call it, but they don't call it a diagnosis.
Okay.
Okay.
And it's usually is it usually work related or could it be other related?
It can be family.
Okay.
Interpersonal. It can be all. So it can be in all kinds of areas, right?
Rob's over
Makes
there.
sense. Makes sense.
I'm thinking of.
I think I've heard of people.
Yeah,
that
I'm thinking
have
of
struggled with
somebody else, right? Yeah. Okay.
So we want to talk about it, and part of the reason I'm bringing it up is I'm hearing this more often than I have before. That people are talking about burnout, and they're talking about burnout particularly with jobs. They're talking about burnout with just being sort of just exhausted in general. I'm hearing this more often.
Okay.
So I thought good for us to talk about.
All right.
So
okay, one more question before we dive in.
Yes.
Do you have one too?
Go ahead.
Okay.
I want to hear.
Is this? I know you said something about external. I missed it, but is it primarily a consequence of our own behavior, or is it something that can be imposed upon us?
Either, but
okay.
Yeah, it is. And here's the thing we talked about, I think once before about stress, is that stress in our culture and in modern times is mostly subjective. And what I mean by that is, if you were in a refugee camp, your stress is not subjective. You're just, it's or you're in a war zone or something like that.
Yeah.
It's
you're stressed.
It's just objectively stressful.
Yeah.
Most of our stress is the meaning that we put on something.
Okay.
So and the example that I might give, not about burnout, but about stress is like, let's say that Mike got sick a day before and you had to step up and preach. Okay. My guess is that your level of stress is fairly low. Correct. Because you've done it hundreds of times. Yes. But let's say someone else got tapped who either...
Say Rob.
Well, I don't...
My stress level might be higher.
Might be higher, but I bet yours is about medium, right? Or high. Okay, well, let's use you then. So it's high. So we're like, all right, Kevin can't do it, Susie can't do it, Sam, whatever. Rob's got to do it. Yeah. You got 2 days of prep.
Now. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay. That is subjective because it's the same task. Yeah. You all might actually have the same, just like the same level of ability or whatever it might be. Yeah. Right. But it means something different to different people. So most of our stress, which consequently leads to burnout, is how we think about our stress. Correct. Most of it.
Yes.
Not all of it.
That makes sense.
But if you're, for example, if you're, you've got 3 little kids and there's a lot of commotion and there's financial pressures and all, there is a level of...
Should I be taking notes?
This is an intervention. That's why I was brought you in here. Yeah.
Wait a minute.
I mean, that is stressful, but how stressful it is.
That's a good point.
You've seen, we'll just use moms as example since they're kind of front line. Yeah. There's some moms that like have it's a rodeo in their house. And they got 3 kids screaming and they seem fine. Yeah. Totally. And then there are others that are like,
they don't even hear
I'm going to lose my mind.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So some of it's temperament, personality, some of it's how it, what it means to you. Sure. So that's important.
Is burnout connected to hopelessness at all?
That's actually a terrific question. I'm going to say yes. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to say it is probably the term we might use is bidirectional, meaning if you're feeling hopeless, you're more likely to burn out. If you're burn out, you're more likely to feel hopeless. Okay. I think that's probably a really good.
They're in the same camp.
I don't think it's the only factor, but it is there. That's a really, really good question.
Okay. Okay. Great.
So what I did is I created, and it's kind of like a checklist, but I'm going to give you maybe, I don't know.
How you might know if you're burned out.
Yeah. Okay. Like 10 things that might be evidence of burnout. Okay. Before I do this, though, let me say this. This is what I used to call it the abnormal psychology class phenomenon, and now I call it the TikTok phenomenon.
Oh, here we go.
Which is you see something on TikTok and you're like,
oh, that's me.
I have ADHD.
Yeah.
I have social anxiety. I have dissociation. Like you self-diagnose because everybody has a hint of whatever the thing is. Yeah. Everybody. Like
before you read this off, do you think most people know they're burned out when they are?
No.
Oh.
No, I think some people do, and other people are just in it so much they're just batting the next thing down, and
they've learned to live in it.
Yeah, and then it reaches a point where they just can't do it anymore.
Okay,
right? Or there's some other they develop an ulcer. They develop.
I was going to say there's some physical manifestation.
Right,
yeah,
a physical problem, or psychologically they just kind of implode. Yeah.
None of that sounds lovely.
No, it doesn't. But this is good stuff to be talking about because
yeah. Especially this time of year.
It is, right. I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
It's interesting because this time of year brings up a lot for a lot of different people. You're talking about meaning and stress.
Yes.
Yeah.
And things that may be significant. It does bring up a lot of different feelings and emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm thinking about, not to make this about me, but in my Thanksgiving break, we have a mountain house that has been renovated as a vacation rental. It's Ellen's childhood home. We have 8 bedrooms in there. And then my mother-in-law has another house with another 3 bedrooms. So we had 23 people. And there's a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and there's other kids there. And I'm like, can I go back to the back bedroom and never come out for the next 4 days?
Right.
You know?
Yep.
And I'm not a high strung person, but
you're
it's
not.
like kids running and screaming, and other people just sitting in the middle of it. They don't think one thing about it.
Nope.
You know what I mean? So we just have to acknowledge that things hit people differently, and certain stressors, I will frequently have people say, how do you do your job? It would be very stressful. My job is not stressful to me. Okay. I like my job.
Yeah.
I feel good about my job.
Yeah.
But someone else would be like, if you're going to listen to 7 people a day tell all the things that they're struggling with, and how, it might wear on them.
Yeah.
It's just different.
Yeah.
All right. Good questions, though.
Yeah.
All right. Remember, TikTok.
No TikToking.
We're not.
No TikTok.
You're going to have one of these symptoms. Everybody will. Yeah. You're going to have 2 or 3. It's only when you start saying man, all of this is me, right? That's not all of it, but most of this is me.
To the 10th degree on a scale of 1 to 10. Okay, I'm feeling this
I'm bad in 90.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I wish I could give you a score or something, but this is just sort of guidelines.
Yeah, great.
So I've got it in 3 categories. The first category is emotional exhaustion.
Oh.
And that is feeling drained or fatigued even after you rest. Like you get enough rest, you go take a break, you come back, and you're still feeling like tank is empty. That's a biggie. Second is, and people often miss this one, trouble concentrating or trouble making decisions in a way that's different than before. So you're like, I cannot get my head together to, and even like small decisions, like where do you want to stop for dinner? And you're like, my brain doesn't work. That's another. The third would be a sense of dread or anxiety about whatever the stressor, like about going home and facing it, about going to work, about facing these responsibilities. And then the fourth in this category would be feeling especially irritable or overwhelmed.
Okay.
All right. So those are biggies. So undoubtedly, there are times when you feel overwhelmed and irritable, or you have trouble concentrating. It's more like, is this term we would use pervasive? Is this kind of like your new baseline?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's first. Then the second category we're going to call either detachment or cynicism.
Oh, and now we're in my camp.
All right, here we go.
Yeah, here we go.
This is for Kevin. The first is feeling detached or apathetic toward whatever the stressors are. It might be work, or it might be colleagues, it might be other people. The second is having this negative or cynical outlook on your responsibilities or those relationships. And the third is a loss of empathy or compassion for other people.
Oh.
Especially Kevin, if you're not watching, Kevin's counting on fingers here, and he's 4 for 3 right now. He's endorsing that.
Yeah.
Are we so far so good?
That could also be my personality.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm like dreading this list. I'm like, how many of these do I have?
And I will also say again,
And Rob has his hands in his pockets.
Everybody will have things on this list
Yeah.
at times.
Right, for sure.
And it's just more like, is this really more true more often now? And it has to be kind of different.
Yeah.
It can't just be like,
Yeah.
well,
This is my
I
normal-
sort of am a cynical person by
Right.
nature, and
Yeah.
I don't like the humans, and I don't have a lot of empathy toward
Yeah.
them. Like,
Right.
that's just you.
Yeah.
All right. The last one is feeling like your personal accomplishments are either diminished or reduced. So one would be feeling a lot more unproductive or inadequate in your role,
Yeah.
or believing your efforts don't make any difference,
Yeah.
or a loss of motivation or sense of purpose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Huh.
So let's pause there.
Yeah.
Thoughts, reactions, questions.
I've had seasons of that.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. They didn't last long, but yeah.
So there's two questions I have with that.
Yeah.
What did you do?
Uh-huh.
And because you said they didn't last long, so something happened.
What would be long? Like
you said.
Yeah, you said it.
I think when I went through a season of here
Oh,
at Journey,
say no more.
where it felt like my efforts didn't matter. It probably lasted about a year.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Okay, that's
So
long.
the not lasting long for Kevin is a year, which is okay.
And relatively, I mean,
Relatively.
I've been around 61, so there's
You've done
you know,
this job for 35 or so years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I oftentimes don't know or recognize that I'm in these moments or seasons until after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know something's going on,
Yes.
right? So like there's a funk or just I don't feel right
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
there's a wall and I've been in Kev's office many times going
Yeah.
like, I don't know what's going on. And he's like, dude, you need a rest, bro.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I would say around the similar season.
Yeah, that was a rough one. Yeah.
That was probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years for me
Yeah.
It's a long time.
of perpetual, like a lot of these,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
where I was constantly feeling like I was on empty.
Yeah. And there wasn't an easy solution.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Right.
A lot of it felt like it was out of my control.
That's a big thing where sometimes,
And,
yeah, little distraction.
yeah, a little.
It's like-
But that,
speaking of trouble,
but I think
concentrating.
that happens in certain seasons. I think it also happens when what happened for me was, okay, I've got to come to accept something. I had to accept circumstances that I couldn't.
Yes. It
Change.
goes back to our radical acceptance conversation.
Yes.
I had to change something.
All right.
Okay.
I had to like shift something.
Yeah.
There had to be something significant that's a marker for me to, okay, this is now different. And I need to like,
Yeah. Yeah.
Both are good. You're picking up on
On some of the
where,
solutions.
yeah, well, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, part of it was I felt like God was absent.
Uh-huh.
Like, I thought this was your thing. I thought this was your church. I thought this was supposed to be something that you're helping me with here. And it felt like he was on the sideline. So
He's like, peace out.
yeah, yeah, that isn't, the message seemed to me to be from God. Yeah, that isn't my thing anymore. That's your problem.
Yeah.
And that's a really crummy place to be when you're pastoring a church. And it didn't matter what I did. I couldn't fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then I had to take a step back and go, maybe I'm not supposed to fix it. There's things I can't do anything about. And so I moved into this space of this ultimately, and part of my rant about the church lately, and you've probably heard it before, is that when I thought that the pandemic would have been a great opportunity for the church to shine in the world.
And it did the opposite.
Yeah.
At least in our culture. It did.
Yeah, and I was a part of that.
Uh-huh.
And so I just had to accept the fact that this isn't what I thought it was. The church isn't what I thought it was.
So before Rob goes,
Anyway,
I
know that sounds depressing.
No, it doesn't actually, because what we're describing in broad categories are two strategies that may work or may not.
Sure.
And one is to accept a situation that you can't control.
Yeah.
Or the other is to really look at points of leverage and control that you can do something about.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're in a situation where literally you can't, unless you're going to just upend your whole life.
Right.
You can't.
Which
do
I thought
anything.
about.
Right. Of course you did. Yeah. You might say, I'm going to move to, Vail, Colorado and run a ski lift here.
Oh, can I?
No, Kev, you cannot
now.
Not now.
Sorry,
Oh,
Kev.
okay.
You could have then.
That is past. You had a moment. It's gone.
Yeah.
Your chance. You had your chance.
You blew it.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
that would be, so
Yeah,
you
that makes
kind
sense.
of look at the lay of the land and say, my best way through this is to practice what we've called, you can listen to it a previous podcast, radical acceptance.
Right. Which I love that podcast.
Yours is to say, I've got to do something
different.
Can you speak to what that was?
I think,
or if not, that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, so it's this weird context because there's the ministry context, which we were all experiencing together.
Yeah.
But then there's also like the personal, emotional stuff that just a journey that I was going through. I think for me, the change signifies, and why I asked the question about hopelessness and burnout, because I couldn't see any hope in the mundane, in the same repeated, this is my life every day, day in and day out, right? And so I needed the change just to provide a little bit of light to illuminate what was so dark around me. So there was changes that I did personally.
Can you, are you able on the podcast to speak to any of them?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Relationally, I changed a whole bunch of things. I changed the way I operated in my relationships. I think in a healthier way.
Okay.
Right. Because I wasn't satisfied in the way things were going, in the way I was feeling or experiencing life, specifically in family and friendships. And so I changed that. Right. It was difficult, but it worked for a number of reasons. Ministry-wise, we changed how we did things for our youth ministry.
Yeah, we kind of blew up youth ministry.
We kind of did. I mean, we were here post-COVID, and we would meet Wednesdays in this building, and it was 15 kids in this massive building, and it was
Felt
a constant,
Yes.
and it was a constant reminder of what it was, and what it isn't.
Yeah.
And so we're we got to do something different, And so we changed it to Sunday mornings, which was one of the greatest gifts, not only for me personally, but I think our ministry and our students.
That's cool.
Just overall.
Yeah.
So, and then I just got really adventurous and tried things more woodworking and photography and all these different things just to I think, again, change the mundane and the everyday palindrome of life.
Yeah.
I think it provided hope.
You guys are both giving these are really good ways of thinking about this and approaching this. You were going to say something.
I think, in retrospect, I mean, I chalked it up to depression. It might have been burnout.
Well, burnout probably led you to depression. Probably.
I could.
Interesting.
Yeah.
In other words, it's if you think about burnout, it's like driving a car to the point where it kind of throws a rod or it sort of
okay, I
right?
understand that. Yeah.
And so then whatever the exhaustion point is, and then there's an emotional consequence of that.
Right.
That's my guess.
And go ahead.
No,
the other thing I had to do was rework my relationship with God.
Yeah.
I had to rework it in a way that allowed for me to release the expectations I thought he had of me. Yes, that's how I would say it. I had to, being in the role I've been in for so long and being a pastor for so long, there were certain expectations that were always placed on me. And with those expectations came stress. And with that, and it spread into my whole life. It wasn't just into little pockets of my life, but it spread to all my life. And with that comes expectations for my family, for my kids, for my staff, for my church. And the realization is, through all that, those were self-imposed expectations that I put on myself that God never did. And I learned to hear God in a different voice, which has been revolutionary for me.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I learned to trust God, specifically in solitude. Like I was a person that always depended on people. I would say I struggled with codependency for a long time.
That's not a thing.
And I didn't know how to do this on my own. Like I didn't know how to operate on my own. I didn't know how to work even on my own. And life and circumstances forced me to do so. And with that was this invitation to trust God, like really trust him as a father, as a friend, as a confidant, like all of those things, to really understand that he is dependable in a way that I didn't think he was. So that changed a lot for me.
That's good.
In that season of, again, we're just COVID and we're on our own.
Right.
I think both of you are hitting on something that I have wanted to ask about for this. And that is, we have a lot of friends that are in or have been in ministry. Not just here, but like, you know, Ellen was on InterVarsity staff for years.
Oh, that's right.
And has the whole network of InterVarsity staff people who then became pastors. A lot of our social friends have been in ministry. And burnout is
rampant.
I have a thought about why I think that is, but you started to hit on it a little bit. Maybe you also, but why do you think, I think burnout is more endemic to ministry, full-time ministry, than a lot of other professions.
Sure.
Why?
Self-imposed. I would say it's self-imposed, but it is spiritualized. It is an expectation that pastors have, that they have a calling.
Okay.
And with that calling comes an expectation of service. And with that comes an expectation that you'll do it in such a way at the expense of all else.
At the expense of?
All else.
All else.
It takes, I've seen over and over again the destruction of family.
Yes.
I've seen over and over again the destruction of churches, relationships, all that stuff. At the, not the expense, but at the explanation. The explanation is, I've been called to this, and they will run themselves. They won't take vacation. They won't take time off. I remember when I planted the church back in '99, the board's expectation was that I would preach 50 weeks.
Wow.
50 weeks.
Good grief.
And I said,
that is insane. I mean,
let's negotiate.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna preach 50 weeks.
No.
So, but that was
right. But that it makes the point of even people who are either supporting or kind of
they have that expectation.
Right. They have the expectation.
You are indispensable is what they kept saying.
Right.
They didn't say it that way, but without you here, we don't know what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah.
So with that comes this.
You internalize that. You're like,
right. Yeah. And if you believe it, if you believe that you're indispensable, then you will run into burnout.
This just made me think of something I want to ask you. I've never asked you this before. And so I apologize if it's too personal, but
no.
Right when all things kind of went a little sideways. Here.
Yeah.
And by the way, for those of you listening, I think Journey's at the healthiest iteration of itself that it's ever been. I think. I mean, I haven't been here
for pretty incredible
only,
place.
Not even a decade, but close.
Yeah.
But it's pretty cool. So it's cool to see that. But during that time, and this was online during COVID.
Yeah.
You were talking about the key man clause.
Oh yeah.
In the loan. And you were like, I'm the key man.
Yeah.
Meaning you were named as the.
Yeah.
And
which was a fluke. I shouldn't have been.
Right. That's your point. It was, I shouldn't have been, but I was named this. So this is actually good.
Yeah.
But it sort of reinforces this idea of like, you're
right.
Like everything is on your shoulders.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was especially after the previous pastor had to resign in December of 19. It was a
perfect storm.
It felt very heavy.
Yeah.
At that, and it was shortly after that I experienced burnout.
Right. That's what I.
Well, there were so many things happening all at once. It was the building project. It was COVID. It was the resignation of a former pastor.
Yep.
It was
It was
all
also
of it.
during the time culturally where things were just
yeah.
blew
exploding
up.
with
We're
George
shifting.
Floyd and other things.
Yep.
It was so the whole world felt like not just with COVID, but like there was this thing happening that was just
right. And my
pressure cooker.
disappointment was at its all-time high in the church.
Yeah,
because what is wrong with the church? This is our moment. This is our moment, people. Let's show Jesus. Nope. Let's fight.
You know, it's interesting too, like ministry-wise. So I sit in a different seat, obviously. Which I'm.
Well, you still love me, so I appreciate that.
But the interesting thing that we experienced was like almost a delayed response to some of these things. Like when something happens, like COVID or pandemics or you know a resignation of a pastor, like oftentimes like you have that first wave of people that leave.
Yeah.
Then you kind of have that second wave and that third wave, right? And so it's delayed often. And it was delayed for us.
Yeah.
To where it was like, yeah, we had the first wave, but then it was like the second wave. And so like the church had started to kind of move on, and we were still kind of reeling from the effects for years of some of these decisions that I had no control over,
right?
You know? But I think the challenge is, at least from my seat, is one, I don't always recognize when I'm there.
Yeah.
And two, Sunday's always coming. Right? Like there's, and if you're not at a place to go, hey, I need space, I need time, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
Right. It's this low hum of whether it's depression or anxiety that will eventually build there. Sunday still comes. And so I still have to quote unquote care for people in this place where I'm like, I need care too, you know? And so what I found to be helpful was healthy community around me. I'm actually part of a cohort of youth pastors.
Oh, nice.
And other pastors, but the beauty is like, we all kind of understand like the role. And so we got to kind of sit in that space and go like, how are you? Cause I'm not okay. Yeah. And we were caring for one another, but not in the place of like, you're a 15-year-old student, you know, or a leader of ours, like you're a peer and a cohort. And so it was just different. And so I found myself finding and searching for places to where I could also be cared for, because without it, I think that's, at least from a ministry perspective, I think why people struggle so much is because they're isolated, they're alone, and they don't know that they're on the verge of burnout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
because they don't hear or see the symptoms.
And to kind of wrap this up, let's take that idea and just extend it a little bit more of you. And I mean this truly, you all have both articulated really good ways of not only thinking about this, but also how to be healthy or get to healthy in it. Yeah. Is there anything else that you have either done or observed that you would recommend for, because we're talking to a church body that among them are going to be people that are like, I think I'm either pretty close to this.
Right. And I think churches do this to people too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just pastors. We do it to people by saying, hey, you need to,
can you show up for this?
I'm the least involved in a church community here than I have been before for that reason.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you will because churches have a way of guilting you and that will add to this idea of burnout.
Yeah. And I can be a greeter or a communion server or do this.
Or a podcast person.
Right. But you know, a podcast guy, white guy. But that's the idea, is like just to say, all right, I'm going to not do this sort of plunge into this in the same way.
Yeah, I think.
Keep going.
I think finding something outside of what was causing me to burn out was extremely helpful. So
right.
And one of the things that I full cards on the table.
Is this going to be a reference to the weather?
No, it is not.
Good. Because we haven't had that yet.
It can be, but
that's a staple of the podcast. Is Kevin commenting on the current weather?
I am. I love cars. I admit that, and so I bought a car. I bought a old BMW Z3,
nice
convertible, and every day possible during that season. When it was, even if it was 40 degrees outside, I'd turn the heat on, the seat heater, and put the top down, and I would drive that car. And somehow, some way, that moved me to a place that was really helpful.
So finding things outside of the place where you're burnout that bring you joy and respite.
Yes.
And that you can kind of commit some mental energy and make you more.
And I can tinker with it.
And hopeful, give you something to do. Yeah.
It used to be a motorcycle for me.
There you go.
And then it moved to this. And it was therapeutic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very smart.
That was one thing. And then recently, I've just being more physically active has really helped me recently. Playing pickleball, and I've been swimming, and that's really, I think, over the last 9 months, the beginning of the year sucked, but the rest of it has been, my mom died this year, so there was a season where it was a little difficult. But since then, and getting more physically active for me has, I think, brought my sense of humor back that I was still looking for.
Nice.
So
I know they talk about like exercise is so important, and it really is. It's addicting. Like, anyways,
can I interject? Yeah. In the research on this,
is there research on it?
Yes.
Oh yeah, the response.
It's one of the single best things you can do for yourself when you're feeling burnout.
It's so hard though.
Get out. Man, I didn't know that.
It's so hard though when you're in that cycle,
it's
right?
Like you don't want to do nothing
to get out of it, right? Yeah. It's just so difficult.
Yeah.
But
yeah, because you feel drained, and then the idea of going to run or lift weights feels like another thing on you rather than something that's going to relieve you.
Yeah.
I would say similar to maybe the car for Kev, like my jump into photography, and I've talked about this before, but like that was such a, like, in a weird way, God saying like, do you trust me? Right. It was something that like, photography is not a cheap hobby to jump into.
Right.
Like it costs my family something.
Yeah. Right. Time,
energy, money, like all the things.
Yeah.
And yet there was this low hum of a voice that I felt like God was saying, like, do you trust me in this?
Yeah.
And what it did for me was, it gave me the ability to risk with something that was risky, but not super risky. And there's something about creating that like was the opposite of, again, the constant hum of whatever life was at the time, right? The ability to look forward to and learn something new, right? And then go practice. Like I took my camera everywhere, annoyingly.
Yeah, I remember.
But it was such a
He was annoyed by it.
He was
very
annoyed.
Most of us just call it a phone.
But it was like, stop, don't you dare.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You heretic.
But it just gave me something to look forward to that was new and different and exciting.
You and I have that in common. I made the decision a while ago to get off. We talked about this before.
Yeah.
Social media, about 98%. And the only thing I'm allowing myself right now is family vacation pictures on Facebook and a pretty picture that I've taken every day on Instagram. And it's for that reason, and I don't check the feeds.
Right.
I just post it and I run. But every day I put a picture because I'm like you. I've invested in DSLR equipment and really nice lenses and things like that.
Well, here's what he did, and not to be like overcomplicated with this, but to be able to see life through a lens, right? And find the beauty, and oftentimes the mundane was like it changed the way I viewed life.
I'm 100%. I don't think that's overreaching at all, because that's where for me I'm like I want to put out good things into the world, and take in less bad things, and that's really so photography was like I'm going to look for things that are beautiful or interesting, or good, and put that out and I don't care if anybody sees it or not really, ultimately, although a little bit, but not in it that I'm trying to establish some kind of following, but more just like I want to put that out there. That's cool. It's a way of being.
And limiting the intake from it.
That's right.
Yeah, I've really done a lot of that. Like I'm
probably wise.
Yeah,
I'll tell you one more
I think
thing.
It's helped my sense of humor too.
Well, it's debatable.
Well,
he's not that funny, guys.
They don't call me. They don't call me Wispy Dixon for nothing.
Stop.
Okay, go ahead.
Wow. So I will make one last point, and that is when you're in a state of burnout, it feels permanent, and it rarely is. And it's just like anything. Like, you know, when you get the flu and you think, I will never, ever feel better.
Yeah.
And I may.
Yeah, this is how I'm going to die.
If I died right now, I'd probably be okay with it.
I feel better.
And you, in that moment, you really feel like I will never, ever feel better again. It's the same thing. Yeah. It's like, you know, I blew my knee out and had to have surgery in a third world country. And I was like,
that's a story.
This will never, I will never
use my knee again.
Yeah, like I'll never walk.
Cut it off.
And you know, it's got a little, it's fine.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that's how we feel with burnout. Is that it feels very permanent. It feels very pervasive. It feels, and that's the part I want to just leave people with is that there are things that can either offset it a little bit that we've talked about here, or things that can, if you're in it, that you can begin to do that will be more recharging and life-giving, and you can get to a better place.
Yeah. Talk to a friend. They might be able to tell you too.
Yeah.
Help you. So friends are helpful. But anyway, all that to say, thank you for joining us for this journey on my mind.
Thanks,
and
Dave.
Dang, Dave, it's cold outside.
Oh boy.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Journey on My Mind. If you enjoyed it, please help us spread the word by leaving us a review and sharing it on your social media. Journey on My Mind is a production of Journey Church in Brentwood, Tennessee. Edwin Rivera III is the show's producer with technical assistance from Randy Hansen. Grant Opperman edits the show. If you have a suggestion for a future topic or a question, you can text us at 615-861-9503. And if you would like to talk to someone about spiritual or mental health issues, you can email our care pastor, Sam Barnhart, at sam@journeytn.com.